Hey there, BookTube. Noah. Everyone who reads It Must Converse is the channel. Thanks for coming by again. And today I'm going to do a bit of a review. I figured this is going to work as a book review as well. So I'm going to go ahead at the start and say this will contain some spoilers for the book. Not big. You can't spoil this book. You can't. Now, why I'm doing it though is for my philosophical sci-fi series. I figured let me do something to really kick that off, and so I'm going to talk about the quintessential sci-fi, philosophical sci-fi, and that is Olaf Stapledon's Star Maker. Olaf Stapledon was a writer he wrote this in 1930s. And so a while ago, before World War II, and he's Englishman. He was living in England, and maybe outside of a big city. Now he was a philosophy teacher in university, a philosophy lecturer and teacher, and so there you have what he's all about. He's a philosopher and was concerned with philosophical ideas, and sci-fi was the medium when he started writing for him to explore those ideas. And there are a number of wonderful Olaf Stapledon works, and I'll probably touch on more as this series progresses because, like I said, he's the quintessential spiritual sci-fi author. This is an amazing work. So what is it about? I'll give you a little bit of a synopsis first to kick us into discussion about it. So Star Maker starts off with a gentleman in the English countryside, an analog for Olaf Stapledon himself. This is an unnamed narrator. He goes out, it's evening, it's after dinner, maybe he just had a fight with his just had a little bit of a spat or an argument with his significant other, and goes out for a walk, and goes out to a hill, and goes and sits on the hill and is looking at the stars. And as he's looking at the stars, he astral projects that's my words, not his. What happens is his essence, his soul, or his spirit, or whatever you want to call it, disembodies from his physical body and goes up into space above where his body is at. And he can see that his body is down there, and he is disembodied, and he is above the earth, and he's completely free. And such freedom. Starts moving this way and that, flying off, essentially, and goes, can go so fast, can go so far, and eventually, pretty soon after doing that, is completely lost. Is lost and can barely gain any bearings for where he's at, and can't even distinguish the sun from other stars, and is just completely lost in space, and gets very scared. And when the fear hits him, it's not a him anymore, right? It's a disembodied consciousness. But when the fear grips it, the will is gone, and he can't move. He can't fly around anymore. So calm down, kind of into, mentally, it all is a mental projection at this point. He is just a disembodied consciousness. But in our minds, there is feeling, there is fear, there is and then there is rationality, and there is imagination. There is all these kind of things that this disembodied consciousness is, and is essentially human, because it is a human consciousness. And once the calming down happens, can move again, can move by force of will, and then kind of gets a feeling for humans, for a companionship of a human friend or something like this, and can sense that kind of feeling in space, and there's kind of like a pull or something. So he goes towards that, thinking that he's going back to Earth, right? Well, where he goes is another planet that is very much like Earth, with beings on it that are very much like humans, but not. This disembodied consciousness then explores that society, explores that alien, and can and figures out that it can enter into the head, the mind of one of those beings that is able to do it. They have to be at a certain level of consciousness, enter into their head, can actually speak to them, teach them to do the same thing, and then they both can disembody. And they both disembody together. So then there's two consciousnesses that are disembodied that are actually one now up in space. So this happens over and over and over, and pulls more and more different beings into the consciousness as the story goes along. You meet hundreds of different types of alien species in this book that are so imaginatively rich that I don't think that there's a parallel in sci-fi writing for the amount of diversity that there is in the alien species that are talked about in this book. There's all different kinds. There's, plants with consciousness. There's symbiotic relationships between different species of aliens on different planets. And the whole time that we're going through this adventure, right? Going to different planets, meeting different alien species, and essentially amassing this huge consciousness construct that is built of all different types of aliens. As that is happening, time is passing, and time is passing by at an amazingly quick rate, because the more and more that these consciousnesses are just pure consciousness, the more time just stretches on and goes on, and the time to travel or the time to do time becomes a almost a it doesn't serve to even think about it or talk about it in the usual terms that we talk about time. So the universe itself is keeping on going and going and going, and what happens is this huge consciousness construct ends up being more and more the universe itself. So at near maybe 3/4 or 3/4 of the way through the book, the universe is cooling off, stars are dying out, there's less and less beings populating the universe, but those beings are more and more resourceful and more capable. So this is the first book, to my knowledge, that has ever used the concept of the Dyson sphere, that uses a technology to actually grab all the energy from a star and use that to power their society. And also, near the end, these beings, the only beings that are alive in the universe itself, are very, very specialized to the environments in which they're in. They're living on dead stars, these kind of neutron stars that are this ultra high gravity, ultra compact ball of basically just neutrons. It's not even elements. And the skill in which he explores these kind of things is ridiculous. But that's not what this is really about. What it's about is like near the end, you actually come into the understanding that the nebulas themselves, the elements and the substance of the universe itself, that is the consciousness that our narrator has become. And everybody else, everything else, every other being, it's just this huge consciousness construct that is now so vast and so expanded that it actually is the universe itself. And that consciousness, once it hits like a certain point of critical mass, can actually turn around. The universe itself can turn around and come face to face with the Star Maker, which is a being, quote unquote being, that is responsible for its being there. So how Olaf Stapledon handles this is so good, and that's the end of the kind of plot. What I want to talk about now is, see, Olaf Stapledon is a product of moral philosophy, is the kind of place that he's coming from. And it's the question of evil. That's what the motivation behind the narrator and the motivation behind him writing this book is the question of evil. Why do evil things happen? If we're in this benevolent, wonderful masterpiece of a world, I mean, obviously there's so much diversity and so much beauty. Nobody could ever intellectually understand what is happening here and what we're actually in. It requires more than just your rational mind. And that's always going to be true, okay? We're not going to rationally figure out and intellectually know what this universe and what reality is all about here, because there's no possible way for our rational minds, for our intellectual minds, to wrap around that. And Olaf Stapledon knew this, of course. He's a philosopher. And so he's coming at it from a philosophical standpoint. And looking at things like, why is there evil in the world? Or why is evil allowed to exist? Well, right then you're in a duality. And good and evil are very much terms that a lot of times can be just straight flip-flopped with each other. They are two opposites that are not opposing necessarily. It is more apt and more correct to say that they are complementary. All right? Like light and dark, hot and cold, up and down. There is no real distinction between them. They're both the same thing. They're just different degrees. They're two sides of a spectrum, and therefore seem to be completely opposite and different from each other, but they're not. They're actually the same thing. So what he does is he uses the concept of the Star Maker, this being that is involved in creating, to explore breaking free of that duality. So, what happens? All right, so now we're gonna get into some spoiler territory for sure. So like I said though, there's no way to spoil this book. It's an amazing, mind blowing experience to read this book. So okay, there it is. Now, the kind of idea, scientific idea, physics idea that comes up and that this is based on is like the multi-dimension, multi-world theory. That there is not just one universe, and we're not just part of one universe, but that there is actually almost an infinite amount of universes It's a result of a problem called the fine-tuning problem, where our universe is, by its physics and its laws of physics, seem to be fine-tuned for life, for diversity. It seems to be fine-tuned for what we see in front of us. So, how is that possible, right? And science will never, make an assumption like, well, there is an intelligence behind what's going on. I mean, they do say that, of course. Um, there does seem to be some intelligence behind um, what reality is, but we'll not go a step further than that to say, what that intelligence might be, because there's no evidence. You can't point to anything and use it to support your claim. So what we can do, what science can do, is say, well, what if what if this universe is not the only universe? What if this is a product? We're one of millions, trillions, maybe infinite amount of universes. What if there's universes with all different kinds of laws? Well, if there's universes, an infinite amount of universes with all different kinds of laws, then our laws of physics that we have in this universe that we live right now, is an inevitability at some point. So then it suffices to say, well, we live in that universe. We live in a universe where it's like this, and this is conducive to life. And for every one universe that is like this that we live in, that is conducive to life, there's probably, a near infinite amount of universes that are not conducive to life. And that works for science. That works for scientific speculation. And so they'll go there for sure. So, but that's the kind of thing. We come in Olaf Stapledon Star Maker, you come face to face with the creator, and this creator is an indifferent to his creations in a big way. It is love. He cherishes it, or it. Sorry. It is just a thing, an idea, but it cherishes the creation and loves it, but it is in the cold light of contemplation, is what it is. That this being is only working, and the ultimate goal of the universe and of the being that is creating the universes is to self-realize, have the universe self-realize, which in Star Maker it does, our universe does, but in an imperfect way. Our universe does self-realize in an imperfect way. And the Star Maker is looking to create universes that realize in a perfect way. Realize the universe as part of the substance of the Star Maker itself. And that's what he gets at. It is very, very esoteric creation spirituality is what it comes down to. Very much in line with like Hermeticism and things like that, that are tough to work into, but Olaf Stapledon was into it. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the kind of things that come out in it, so we can explore some of the philosophy. This is when the consciousness construct, the huge consciousness construct, has become the entire universe. Our narrator has actually become basically, the universe itself, and has looked upon the Star Maker and seen that the Star Maker is good and evil, both. What is it then? Only the good aspect of the Star Maker should I worship? No. Irrationally, yet with conviction, I gave my adoration to the Star Maker as comprising both aspects of his dual nature, both the good and the evil, both the mild and the terrible, both the humanly ideal and the incomprehensibly inhuman. Like an infatuated lover who denies or excuses the flagrant faults of the beloved, I strove to palliate the inhumanity of the Star Maker. Nay, I positively gloried in it. Was there then something cruel in my own nature? Or did my heart vaguely recognize that love, the supreme virtue in creatures, must not in the Creator be absolute? So it is that thing of coming to a point right there where you know the good and evil, okay, I mean, if what we're in is good as far as conducive to life and conducive to us being able to experience it and have life, if that kind of thing is happening, well, then the flip side of that is complete destruction, right? Well, we've seen in Star Maker, you see everything being destroyed eventually. And all that is the responsibility of the Star Maker. So the Star Maker is good and evil. It is it is the beneficiary of everything, and we are just subject to what we're here. We didn't ask for this life and stuff, but being able to experience and to live and to be conscious is enough reward in itself, even if that is a very hard and imperfect, flawed life. Another piece. This time, however, he dealt more. So this is after when we're talking about there's two stages of creation. So creating, the Star Maker will create, and it's called immature creating, and that's the kind of creation that we're in right now. Okay, like the earth right now. A creation that is flawed, a creation that is not perfect, that has good and evil. Evil, is overbearing. People don't uh, progress. Their consciousnesses do not grow and expand very easily. They have to work at it very arduously. The universe itself sometimes seems like it's working against this. Definitely, there's societal and different issues um, within the different beings. So humans working against other humans, things like that, rather than us all helping each other. That kind of creation is called immature creation in this book. And then there's mature creating. Mature creating is after a great many tries, many universes, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of universes, the Star Maker starts creating universes that are fully self-realized, fully able to understand their relation to the Star Maker as part of itself and all that. So I'll give you a little piece on the mature creating. This time, however, the Star Maker dealt more sensitively with the medium of his creation. The crude spiritual material which it objectified from its own hidden depth for the formation of its new creature, the universe, was molded to a still tentative purpose with more sympathetic intelligence, with more respect for its nature and its potentiality, through which detachment from its more extravagant, though with more detachment from its more extravagant demands. To speak thus of the universal creative spirit is almost childly anthropomorphic. But the life of such a spirit, if it exists at all, but must be utterly different from human mentality and utterly inconceivable to mankind. And that's what it is. That's why That right there is why the rational mind, and it's just known, okay? A lot of folks just, and humans have known this forever. You cannot, with your rational mind, with your intelligent mind, conceive of God or conceive of a God of any kind, really, because it is utterly different from human mentality and utterly inconceivable because of that. Um, that doesn't mean that it's not real, right? Um, it actually is asking the human being to take another step. If you are stuck in a mental, ultra rational, ultra, intellectualized framework, then you have to see that, dreams, imagination, these kind of things expand you and allow that kind of thing. So more on the mature creating. I can say too that all of these creations, the goal which, as it seemed to me, the Star Maker sought to realize was richness, delicacy, depth, and harmoniousness of being. But what these words in detail mean, I should find it hard to say. It seemed to me that in some cases, as in our own cosmos, he pursued this end by means of an evolutionary process, crowned by an awkward, cosmical mind, which strove to gather into its own awareness the whole wealth of the cosmical existence, and by creative action to increase it. But in many cases, this goal was achieved with incomparably greater economy of effort and suffering on the part of the creatures, and without the huge dead loss of utterly wasted, ineffective lives, which is to us so heartrending. Yet in other creations suffered seemed at least as grave and widespread as it is in our own cosmos. So even in the mature creating, there is suffering. There is suffering. And why? Okay? The reason why there's suffering is because there is not knowing what you really are, who you really are, what your purpose is, and that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that causes suffering. If somebody knows within themselves who they truly are, what their purpose is, and what their meaning is, that is an end to suffering for that person. Because no matter what happens to you, you can actually bear it. And you can bear it without suffering through it. You know, uh, of course, somebody can say, well, if somebody was sitting there, kicking you until you die from it, you know, you're not going to get kicked for an hour and at the end of that hour still be, smiling. Well, inwardly you could. Okay? Outwardly you're going to be, dying, of course, and suffering, and it would be bad and things like this. But in your inward knowing, okay, we are not our bodies. Okay? We are not our bodies. We are not our minds, to a great extent. What people identify as their mind is basically their ego, almost 100% of the time in modern society. What people think, that's not what they think that what they think is what they are. And it is specific certain thoughts that they have identified with. And thoughts that you have identified yourself with, that is the ego. Thoughts are not you. Thoughts are not me. My thoughts are not me. I can change my thought. But can I change being? Can I change my being? Being a human being. Can I change my essence? No. No way. So, thoughts are not yourself. Your body is not yourself. These kind of things is what Star Maker brings up. These are the kinds of ideas that I want to explore a bit in this series, and I hope you enjoyed this booktube. And give me some feedback. Let me know what you thought. Thank you. Catch you on the next one. Bye bye.